Damon told me to go by and look at the floor whenever he originally did. I guess that was last year. I just didn't ever get a chance. He said it was awesome.
It looks good. I need to put this.
I think it's 5 p.m.
Yeah, is it?
Go ahead and go home and leave.
Yeah, drop by whenever.
Will y'all sign in, please? And there's a copy of the agenda.
Yeah, that was actually petrified wood on the outside.
Really? Did not know that.
Which
Well, it
you
aged.
you can't tell until you get up on it, but it's
Mhm.
definitely petrified wood, and apparently it's an expensive building material, but it's like it's got so much mortar between each piece because
Uh-huh.
you know it's hard to. So they just
About
like
10,
slathered it on there and shoved the rock in or
So
whatever.
did you just go over the?
We just built a little
Yeah.
frame around the
Yeah.
outside of it, so it's
You
still
want me to call
there.
it to order? Okay.
Sometime in the future, somebody will go, whoa.
Good evening. I'll go ahead and call this
Exactly, that's what'll happen.
Board of Planning and Zoning Board meeting for January the 14th. It is 5:01, and if we could, we'll start with reviewing the minutes. Okay. So, okay, I'm sorry. So I guess we need to do introduction of members and staff.
Okay. Yeah, good evening. We did our agenda probably some weeks before, and some things have changed. One of the greatest changes that we are fortunate to have a new P&Z member that will be hopefully appointed by the City Council tomorrow. So what we have on the agenda was to introduce staff and new members, but I think we will skip that
Okay.
for next week.
Okay. So then I guess we need to move on to agenda item 3 is elected chairman and vice chairman.
With that, I would also want to recommend that the PNZ makes a motion to table that for the next meeting when
Okay.
we have the other new members, so we could have a quorum before
Okay.
taking that decision. So
Okay.
if anybody would make
You
a
would make a
motion
motion?
to table it.
So move that we, motion, offer motion that we table our officers until next meeting.
Okay.
I'll second.
And then we can move on to the approval of minutes from the last, I guess, December the 12th.
Sure.
Does anybody see any changes or anything that needs to be made? If not, can
No
we
changes.
have a motion to accept those?
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then we'll move on to the item number 4, the Planning and Zoning Commission orientation.
All right, and with that as well, since we are hoping that the City Council will appoint somebody tomorrow, we will recommend PNZ makes a motion to table that agenda item so that when we have all 5 members, we can
Okay.
have the orientation and have a good discussion as well.
Okay? And anybody want to make a motion in that favor?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving forward. And then number 6, I guess, discuss 2019 planning projects.
Yes, that we wouldn't table, we will let it go on.
Okay, I was wondering.
Table it too.
All right, we'll see later, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I
Mike's
quickly
glad
wanted
he
to
came.
go through what we did last year, 2018 in review. I came in new, Caleb, our new intern, and Jerry. How many years have you been here?
About 12 and a half.
Yeah, so Jerry has been here 12 years and still here with us.
Wonderful.
We had 7 rezoning cases, 5 plots and 2 SUPs. Those 2 SUPs would actually go to City Council tomorrow based on your recommendation, and I'm hoping to see how the outcome of that. We had an ordinance adoption, that is a commercial landscaping, and we made some changes to it. And we also had emphasis on the parking islands, where we reduced the number of, so current ordinance, the previous ordinance says parking landscaping was will be triggered if there are 200 parking spaces or more. But I believe I reduced that to 120. And even at the meeting, City Council showed interest in further reducing those requirements. So we're looking forward to doing that in 2019. Primary goals for this year will be to provide more information to the Commission, City Council, and the public. I want to state on records that as the city planner, mine is to just to make a recommendation. The final decision will lie in the hands of P&Z and City Council. So I'm just a staff here to bring cases to you, make a recommendation, and you can either go in approval of my recommendation or against it. It all lies on P&Z and City Council to make final decisions. We want to review and audit ordinances to see what is best in line to improve the garden capital of Texas. And also want to make Nacogdoches a vibrant community. We did have a stakeholders meeting last year to discuss a lot of issues, and we are hoping we can do more of it this year as well. This is just in discussion. There's nothing concrete, but we are looking at annexation. We have the racetrack and area. We have the northeastern area as well. Currently it's just in discussion. We will look at the economic benefits. We'll look at the kind of, even if the city has the resources to extend utilities or amenities to those areas. So they are just in discussion. We have 3 areas: the racetrack, the northeastern section, and then the airport area. Depending on finances, strengths, and anything that the city can, we'll probably want to break them into smaller sections to see how best we can work around them. But these are just in the talks, and nothing of this has actually been written down on papers. And once we are able to decide on which one to move forward with, we'll bring it back to the P&Z. So we have a discussion and see how best we can move forward with that. So we do have plans for annexation. This year, what we have started with is to, okay, please go ahead. Oh, okay. We want to have a great partnership with SFA. I always say when I was at UT Arlington in planning school, most of our class projects was based on the city of Arlington. If the city didn't have data, then we moved outside the city, but most of our projects were based in the city. And I did get in touch with the help of Caleb to meet some of the professors on campus to see how best the planning department can work with them to have some projects here. And fortunately for us, we have some in discussion. There's a class going on this spring, and we are looking at the class doing some property value assessment within the city limits. We also talked about corridor analysis of North Street and their needs assessment for mobility infrastructure near schools. So our goal is to get a class to subdivide itself into groups and then work on this project. Currently we are talking to Dr. Daryl McDonald, who is a professor in I think it's a School of Geography or something like that, and he's really willing to work with us. One of the things that he wants to...
There's a doctor, Dr. Forbes.
Professor.
Dr. Forbes.
Yes.
Bill Forbes. He's and I know he does some he's done several studies with the city as well. He'd definitely be a good contact as well.
Good contact, okay. Well, I think he's the School of Government, yeah. Okay,
He's done a mobility study and some other studies.
Studies, okay. All right, we'll get in touch with him as well. We also want to look at neighborhood revitalization. We want to encourage infill developments. Nacogdoches' population is about 30-something thousand, but the city size is way bigger than the population is. So we want to encourage infill development as against most new development going into the county. We want to see how best we can work with developers to have more infill developments. At the stakeholders meeting, one of the biggest things they talked about was developing in the city is more expensive than developing in the county due to utility costs and some other stuff. So we'll try to see how best we can sit down with them and have a discussion to encourage them to develop within the city limits. Like I said earlier, we want to work with SFA on some projects. We also want to work with our code enforcement, especially to do massive, code enforcement in certain areas of the city where we feel there's a lot of decline in development and a lot of substandard housing. And then we want to provide public engagement as well, just like we had for the stakeholders meeting. We are thinking of extending it to the public to see what they want. Planning is always better when we start from the bottom up, because we plan for the people, and so it has always to be with them. So we are looking at probably having more public engagement as the months go by. Census 2020, we've started. We actually had a first meeting with the mayor. As a requirement for the census, we need to have I'll call it the stakeholders committee to help propagate the agenda for the census. I think with Nacogdoches, our biggest issue is the fact that most of the students spend more out of probably 1 year, they spend about 8 months in Nacogdoches, but when it comes to counting them in the census, they always count themselves to the original homes where they live, whereas they spend more years within the 4 years. So one of our targets will be to have a lot of public outreach to let students know that if you live in Nacogdoches and you spend most of your time, especially within those 4 years in Nacogdoches, it will be better for you to be counted within the city of Nacogdoches as against where you originally came from. So that is one thing that we would really want to work on. That our mayor is very supportive. We would start working on this committee within the next probably month, and all of this I'll be updating the P&Z on how things go.
Do you have any concerns about underreporting in our minority populations due to some of the issues that have been in the press about some of the census questions and other
Great.
things that are maybe scaring people from not reporting?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I went to one of the meetings, and it's something that really came up, that in previous census, people felt safe to give information, but now there's a lot of tension out there, especially with immigration issues. So it is very possible that we are not going to get a lot of participation from minorities or people that are more affiliated with immigration issues. In the past, probably 10 years ago, anybody living in a household will come out and give you their information. But now, people don't know how this information would reflect on immigration policies and ICE and all of those stuff. So there was a big concern that we probably wouldn't get that much participation from the minorities as compared to previous years.
And that data is tied into all kinds of benefits or money coming from the state and for the schools and everything. So that's a big issue, right? I mean, I guess if everybody has the same amount of underreporting, maybe not, but okay.
But it's a big area of concern that we need to look at.
So how does that tie in, I guess, to, like you said, the mayor and other, I guess, stakeholders? I mean, is it going to be, I guess, people with the schools and just different, I mean, as far as who all do you foresee being part of that?
So the target for this group is to be able to reach out to the people.
Sure.
And as part of the census criteria, one example would be a student rep. We're looking at probably students division, student affairs division or something like that. We want to look at a community, a religious leader.
Understood.
So we look at the
That's what I was
biggest
wondering.
church
Yep.
in Nacogdoches and try to get somebody from there.
The churches, that'll get
churches,
a lot of trust there
Sure.
to be able to get that information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then these committees would also have subcommittees who would go out to give this outreach. So
So hopefully going those many different routes to
Sure.
different people, that maybe you get a better outcome of, accurate information, from
Sure.
the church or from whatever, I just.
and then what other cities also do is try to get in touch with the various, I don't want to use the word ethnic groups. Like, for example, we'll probably reach out to, if there's a large African community here, we'll reach out to their presidents. If there's a large Hispanic community, we'll reach out to them and let them know we are bringing it to them. They don't, we are bringing the information to their doorstep. So these are stuff that we'll consider. Yeah. And then with our comprehensive plan, it was it was updated in 2003. No promises. We haven't made any budget to update it, but we will do our best to see if we can get some students from SFA to help us to update it. And I'm happy you brought out the fact that some professors on campus have already done some work with the city. So we'll probably be in touch with them to see how best we can revisit some of these policies.
Do you see the professors that you reached out to, do you see them wanting to help and being, are you getting some resistance there? I mean, do you think that you'll have a good partnership with SFA, or are you struggling with it, I guess is the question?
Well, we have two professors who, I think it's no more of a discussion. It says one of them is a done deal, and as part of the project, they will be reporting to the PNZ. They will come here to tell you what they have done and give their. And I think that is something that the students can always put on their resume,
Sure.
and the fact that they'll be coming to see the commission to present their final work. So one is a done deal. We are actually waiting on him to put dates on when the project should start. So they've been very cooperative. The School of Government has also been cooperative. Their head of department is very cooperative, and he has actually told some of the students to reach out to our office for some projects. So
Yeah, it's kind of almost an untapped resource that we have there. It's a big resource,
Yeah.
at SFA, and so it's just, I know a
Yeah.
lot of other organizations are trying to reach out to SFA to really
Yeah.
kind of be more cohesive together,
Sure.
and so I just think
Sure.
that there's a lot of students, a lot of projects, and a lot of professors that could benefit, and obviously the city could
Sure.
benefit tremendously too, so that's.
And these are real world practices. Whatever we give them is something that is happening, and so it's not just theory stuff. It's more of a practical aspect that will help them too. So
Interesting. Okay.
looking forward to that.
Good.
And then North Street Steady. Ever since I came in here, everybody talks about how North Street had some lovely trees and some beautiful homes that we don't see anymore. Of course, I cannot bring those stuff back. I don't know where those buildings are at the moment, but we'll try to see how best we can. A city manager, this is one of the projects from the city manager, to look at North Street again to see how best. Maybe a simple streets, bicycle lane, or street restriping the streets, and some stuff would. There's always that group that go like Arbor Day where they plant a lot of trees. We can always suggest planting trees along North Street. Just some small stuff for the beginning. So we'll certainly look into that and try to see if we can take North Street back to its glory days, like everybody says. So. Yeah. Then in conclusion, we have a lot to do for 2019. I believe, so now I'll just, if we want to go around, to everybody, if there's anything in mind that you think the planning department should look at, it shouldn't be anything physical, policy-wise. I know, Stephanie, you did talk about the communication towers.
I've thought about that since the last meeting.
Yeah, so probably that will be one of our agendas that Jerry will be putting down, looking at communication towers and how to make sure we don't have them scattered all over
Right.
the city. So we'll look into policies like that.
Great.
Yeah. Is there anything else you have in mind?
Probably just more beautification.
More beautification.
We have so many large lots of concrete that it would, I think, be great to have some kind of landscaping
okay.
policy or,
Okay.
Yeah, especially for the Garden City.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You could blame Travis for that, but
yeah.
we're gonna be the Garden City.
Yeah.
We should.
You should feel it
Okay.
when
Yeah.
you drive down North Street.
And I know this goes to thing that developers hate, but maybe looking at increasing, if you want to develop along North Street, and sometimes these things backfire because then people don't want to do it. But if you look at like a large commercial developer like Chipotle,
Okay.
for example, they put in a curb and a sidewalk, and they landscaped it, and it looks good. Some of the older developments that maybe not done as professionally, they'll just pave all the way to the street.
Street, yeah.
So it'd be nice to have a little green space and a safe walking area for pedestrians.
That's what I was gonna say, definitely, I know it's been on there and it's been talked about a lot, but I think it's becoming more and more, you know, of the accessibility, the walking
Sure.
and the curbs and that sort of thing, because I know there's a lot of people here that enjoy the outdoors, and so being able to get around, you know, without a car, you know, being able to walk and go and do, I think accessibility is a big deal. I know, and like I said, I know it's been talked about quite a bit, but trying to focus more on that, I think, so.
And that's, I mean, anything with that's gonna take years, but
Yeah,
you
it does.
gotta
Yeah,
start
yeah, you gotta,
sometime.
you gotta,
Yeah.
and starting with the new developments and that sort of thing, those are kind of, you know, so.
Since this is a discussion, my question, I'm sure most of you have been here for a while. How do you think business owners, let's focus on local business owners, how do you think they will take it if we have a standard that requires them to construct sidewalks or some sort of beautification? How are
I think
local business
a
going
lot
to
of
take
the
it?
business owners would probably be okay with it, their landlords may not be. You know,
Okay.
and that's probably where you're gonna run into it. If they own the building
Mm-hmm.
and they're running the business, they might not, I don't know. I'll defer to the realtors on
Yeah, I
that.
mean, you get a little bit of opposition,
Yeah.
I think, and obviously, any kind of new construction, you just make it as a requirement for those sorts of
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
but trying to go retroactively back and say, hey, look, you know, we're gonna start requiring, or whatever it may be, I don't, you know, obviously, I don't think you can, but if they start trying to do remodeling or something like that, that's, you know, but you know, I just think you need to have those stakeholder discussions with those owners and talk to them,
Owners.
but I think you'll have a little bit of opposition, probably so, just because of the cost, I'll just be honest with you.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think, you know, having been on the Historic Landmark Commission, you know, we didn't force anybody to do anything, but we had grant programs.
Sure.
yeah.
And that really did encourage people to do a lot of beautification that they really didn't have to do, but they wanted to do.
Sure.
And then as you,
That's a good
and it's kind of like a, you know, snowball rolling down a hill. You get one person to fix their, you know, you get like the Fishers to fix up their law firm and Dolly's to move in, then all of a sudden people are like, whoa, my building looks bad. And there's a little bit of social pressure, I think, you know, and people, you know, have pride and they want their buildings to look good.
Good.
So I think if you could find a way to maybe soften the economic impact,
Yeah.
Sure.
it would be good.
It comes down to dollars and cents,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, that's all it comes down to is realistically. I mean, everybody wants everybody to be safe and walk and do all that, but at the same time, it costs a substantial amount of money. It's, you know.
I see.
you know,
Well, since you brought a grant issue out, one thing we would be doing this year, I think the federal government is even shut down. The federal government has a grant they call it Safe Route to School that helps to fund sidewalks around schools. So it is something that we would also look at, and Caleb is actually seriously working on that. So.
And as you start around the schools, and we can obviously expand it out from there, but you just gotta start somewhere, like you said, almost a snowball effect there, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. So I believe on the Historical Society, they have certain colors that buildings can be painted, not painted. and I-
Mostly not paying.
Right. So do we have one, because I know there's some bold buildings through town within the city limits. Do we have anything?
Well, I think we don't, and I've worked in some cities and they all didn't. I think the issue of colors has to do, a planning issue, it has to do with speech, the
freedom of
amendment, yeah. It's, I want to put my building green.
Yeah.
Why should it tie? You're expressing yourself. So we currently don't have it, and I don't know if it.
Create a lot of
I don't know
problems.
if you.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's something that we can
Geographical
do.
overlay district, you have some say-so what happens in
Right.
that district, but obviously the whole city, I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
have any kind of a district.
Yeah, colors. We try. I don't know how historic district is able to enforce colors. I think they just give recommendation.
Well, I think, yeah, I don't think we were technically allowed to
Sure.
say what color you could paint it, but I think we could say, well, number one, they don't like putting paint on anything that's not already painted.
Sure.
And then second, it should be historically appropriate, so that saves you most of the time, because people don't usually want to come in and paint their building hot
Yeah.
pink if it's, you know,
Yeah.
in the historic district.
Isn't
But
there a color palette that you choose from?
generally, yeah, there's like there's a whole federal guideline and standards on that, yeah.
Yeah.
Based on your
Yeah.
age of your building and
But I think we can we can make an ordinance to talk about building material, how the front facade should look like, and so many other stuff. But with colors,
Yeah.
I'm yet to see any regulation that would allow that.
Yeah.
One thing that would help with me in relation, I visit other cities and I leave different small towns, even smaller, well, I know Nacogdoches is a small town. Other places have LED lights, you know, on the street, and then we get to Nacogdoches, we got these little low sodium light bulbs. They
Okay.
look like, town 40 years ago. They got the same lights.
The oldest lights in Texas.
I will communicate this to our downtown director.
Yeah, they just,
Yeah.
I'm talking about most of the street lights is low sodium.
Yeah.
they
And
just,
they not, I see where they change some streets, some lights, street lights. They change in some of the
They are.
lights.
they did on my street.
But maybe they already got that in effect. They just put 4 or 5 in a month. I don't know. But
They're just waiting for them to go out. Yeah.
I guess so. But when I come in from South Street,
You know you're in
and I
Nacogdoches.
know I'm in Nacogdoches because the lights at the business are brighter than the street lights, you know, coming into the city.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on our list and
Yeah.
do that. Anything else in terms of policy, how meetings are gone and stuff like that? I know, Commissioner Dapish, we've had a discussion about take-ins and all of those stuff. If there's a point in time we want the city attorney to come in and give us something related to that, it doesn't have to be a public meeting. We can just meet upstairs if it's something that, if anybody has any topic for discussion,
Yeah.
that we think it's an educational thing, you can let me know. I can get with the city attorney and then we can have a discussion on it upstairs. Because like I said, at the end of the day, I make recommendations, but it's you who vote before it goes to city council. So
so in other words, we need to be more educated as we
Sure.
go along too. Sure.
yeah, so if there's any, if you hear it, for example, I think the city of Minnesota, they had the new regulation where you can actually build duplexes and triplex and townhomes in their single family zone. So basically, the R1 zone, which is the basic for most cities, is gone. And another city in Minnesota is going towards that too. So a lot of things are happening. So
lot of changes.
yeah, changes. So if there's anything that comes up that you hear that you think you want to know more on, just let me know. I'll go to the city attorney and
Yeah, and I know we tend to be pretty conservative about not taking on fights when there could be cost involved, I guess.
Sure.
Because you don't want to, for example, like one thing I would like to regulate or zone out of existence would be like these check cashing places. We've got 100 of them in town, and we have no regulations as far as I know about them. But I mean, there's fights going on in the courts about that right now because some cities have decided to go out and say, be very restrictive.
Sure.
And of course, these guys have
Payday
money and
loans or check cashing out.
yeah. What's that?
Payday loan?
Payday loans, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you said check cash.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, payday
Yeah.
loan.
I think
yeah.
the city
Yeah.
went through it.
Like the title loans and payday loans, yeah.
It's really,
They're predatory, yeah.
yeah, lots of minorities go to those places and they will never be able to pay for those. It cripple our community. It ought to be something set up with the banks and the financial institutions where they can meet those needs of $2,500 or less because
Yeah.
they make from 200 to 800% interest on money.
Sure.
Yeah, and there are some cities have, I think Denton might be one of them. Some cities have gone out and gotten really aggressive, but then of course they're getting sued.
Sure.
I think he's a senator now from Oregon. We went to the NCRC, that's the National Community Reinvestment Coalition in DC they have in March. We attend that for the last 5 or 6 years. And there was one senator who was the Attorney General, I think it was Oregon, can't think his name right now, but, when he became, governor, he outlawed most of the payday loans in that
I
state.
see.
And one of the problems we have in Texas, lots of people that we know, and lots of people who own property and monies, big names, they invest in those payday loans. So that's the reason it's so hard to deal with in the state of Texas, because you have those solid partners who have monies invested in it. They may be officers in the banks that invest in those payday loans, because you know, lots of that going on in Texas. That's why we can't get laws changed. They passed a law. They had a law on the table in 2015, I think, to limit them to 36%, but they kicked it out
Yeah.
in the courts.
36.
To have a cutoff of 36% was the highest you could charge. But but there can be a solution to that.
Sure.
If the financial institution want to resolve the problem, they can. And now there's some places that have finance for people up to $4,000 or $5,000, and they put money in, and once they pay it back, they just keep putting money in and start a little capital fund and build up their credit and a little capital. But it can be resolved if Nacogdoches want to do it. But if we as people already invested in it and making money with it, we may not want to get rid of it.
I see. Okay.
Well, that's interesting though, that you say that, you know, there's a way that the banks could.
They can.
Yeah.
The bank's monies are given for the service of the people. It's not a money-making institution. Money come from the FDIC and OCC. That comes to service the people. And so, you know, it can be a solution to that. It's savings and loan organizations in other places who set up. One company been in business since 1978 to make loans for people with $2,500 or less to meet that particular need. Now, 40 or 50 years ago, you could go to the bank and borrow $500, but you can't hardly get under $25,000 or $3,000 now. You know, they won't loan $500, but 40 or 50 years ago, you could borrow $500 and help you with your house payment but that, it ought to be a program. If the banks can financial institutions come together and say, okay, we have this fund here set aside to meet the need, those low and moderate income people who need $500 or whoever need $500 to $2,500 and pay it with 10% interest. But these people go and pay 800% on $500. They borrow $500 and pay $3,000 or $4,000 back.
Yeah. Okay. We'll look at what is being done around the country and probably discuss more on that. Since this is a public meeting, I will give you the chance to allow anybody from the audience.
Yeah, this is a
who has-
public meeting, so if anyone would like to speak on any of these issues, you're welcome to. Okay. I see none, then is there anything else, anybody else, any other topics or thoughts?
And of course, you can always send me emails individually to discuss stuff. So,
Wonderful. Anything else?
okay.
Wonderful. I guess we are adjourned, and it is 5:34.
All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
They had some discussions just last year